Welcome to the Live Courageously podcast show. I'm your host, John Duffy, and this is the 49th Live Courageously podcast show since I started the show about 2 years ago. Live Courageously has been the conscious theme of my life for the last 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, and has been an unconscious theme for most of my life. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear. So let's meet today's courageous guest, Dr. Theresa Larson. Dr. Theresa Larson, commonly referred to as Dr. T, is renowned for her enduring commitment to wellness and strength as both the founder of Movement RX and a proud veteran of the Marine Corps. She has lived multiple lives. At 10, she was a caregiver to her dying mother. As an adolescent, an all-star high school, college, and professional softball player. As a young adult, a fitness competition winner, a beauty pageant contestant, and a model. And as a grown woman, a high-achieving lieutenant in the Marines in charge of an entire platoon while deployed in Iraq. Meanwhile, Theresa was battling bulimia nervosa, an internal struggle which ultimately cut short her military service when she was voluntarily evacuated from combat. Her journey to wellness required the bravery to ask for help, to take care of herself first, and abandon the idea of perfect. In Warrior, her memoir, she lays bare all the lives in intimate and vivid detail, examining extremely personal and sometimes painful moments, and how by finally accepting the help of others, she learned to make herself whole. From growing up in a log cabin outside of Seattle to facing down the enemy in Iraq, her journey demonstrates that good health and happiness is a daily, intentional act that requires persistence and commitment. And she hopes that through sharing her story, she'll help inspire others to empower themselves to embrace their inner warrior and redefine strength. I said that twice. Startling and funny, terrifying and triumphant, heartbreaking and inspiration. Her memoir, Warrior, is a story of perseverance and success of a determined woman who is a model for everyone struggling to conquer their own demons. She shows that asking for help can be an act of courage, and that we are stronger than we think when faced with seemingly impossible odds. And so, having personally navigated the complexities of mental and physical injuries, her experience has spurred a deep-rooted dedication to helping business owners and leaders face difficulties such as client attrition, employee retention, and scalability issues that can result from their own compromised mental or physical well-being. She created Movement RX and has been honored with the prestigious Force for Good Award, reflecting their unwavering commitment to promoting healthy leadership and organizational well-being. Dr. T and her team are hard at work building the community of business owners and leaders who are resilient, healthy, and happier in all they do. Greetings, Dr. T, and thank you for joining the show.
Hello, John and everyone. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
Well, usually I have two questions I ask. The first one is, where did we meet? But we haven't met in person yet. But I want to do a shout out to a friend of yours, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Duncan, a U.S. Marine Corps, and also a podcaster with Power of Our Own Story, for connecting us. And I got a chance to just meet him recently, and we just spent a couple of hours talking, and he introduced me and told me a little bit about your story and said, I had to meet you. I had to have you on my show. And that's why you're here today. So a shout out to him.
Yeah, Scott's amazing. And everyone I've met has been like salt of the earth. So.
Yeah, well, he's definitely one of those. And so the second question I asked, since we haven't met yet, we're meeting online for the first time, really, prior to the show and the show, was, what does Live Courageously mean to you personally? And I talked a little bit about, in reading your bio, the different aspects of what courage and bravery is. And it's different for all of us. You have your own unique experiences. So if you could share that with us, that would be cool.
Well, living courageously from just how I describe it, it's almost how I describe being a warrior. It's taking ownership of your life, right? So that looks like speaking up. That can look different for everyone, but what does taking ownership look like for me? Speaking up about the things I want, asking for help when I need it, right? Not holding back, risking it all because it matters, right? Not being afraid to forgive and say, I love you. So that's what it looks like. And of course, with living courageously doesn't mean that's the absence of fear. That means there still is fear. It just means acting even in the face of fear. So
And you know, you have, I know on your page you talk about an origin story. I mean, obviously your story, and I shared a little bit in the bio, but you know, that acting in the face of fear for everybody is a little different, right? And you share in your book, Warrior, which is available for people to read on Amazon. It's a very inspiring book. You share your unique struggle to overcome. And it, you know, we think of bravery sometimes. You know, you were in the military, you led people in war. That we think of that as bravery, and it is. But then there's the hidden bravery sometimes that takes even more courage, and that's a little bit of your story.
yeah, I would say for most, that's the hardest part. Is I mean, I do, warriors, people that join the military who are amazing athletes, right? You would maybe see them as warriors, and they are. Yet there is an underlying inner warrior that we all can have if we take ownership of our life. And it is hard to ask for help because of what you think people think of you, right? Or the fear of what people will think of you, or letting people down. Yet, really, the only person you're letting down is yourself. And at the end of the day, like, why does it matter? For example, asking for help. It's such a vulnerable thing. Like, why is it important for you to be healthy? Right? Maybe you have a family, maybe you have big dreams, maybe you have a team you're supporting, right? Or you are in combat. Like, so there needs to be a why behind it. And then letting go of the ego attached to it is really important and hard for people to do. I've met some big egos in the military and in the business world. I mean, it's there in our world. But I've learned to, the more vulnerable I can be, I feel more powerful, and like nothing can stop me. The thing that does stop me is when I start to think, what do people think of me? And what is this gonna this just even writing my book. I mean, shoot, do you think there were many people who did not agree with the message I had, who were in my life, teammates of mine, even service members, right? But it's my story from my perspective. And not all of my teammates in college were my best friends, right? Or even people I worked with, and even now. But like, I had to tell the story that was truthful to me. And that was hard.
When did you know, well, we'll talk about the book for a little bit, but there's so much more. I want to dive into what you just said because there's just so much there. Um, but with the book, when did you get the decision to do it? And then what did it take you to, like you said, without people wanting the exact message that you wanted to share, what did it take you to get from that initial idea to finally make it a reality, make it a completion, and put it out there in the world to help others? Tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about that journey.
that's a good question. So my I had an idea when I was standing in front of my commander, who was our battalion commander, and he was, telling, I'd come home from Iraq, and he was just like, I don't understand what happened to you. And and honestly, I couldn't quite describe it myself. I just knew that I was not 100%. And I still had not wanted to, I mean, I knew I was diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I still like couldn't fathom that I had one. And so, but I remember thinking, like, gosh, I'm not alone here. Like, I know I'm not the only one struggling with this. I mean, I'm a high performing human being. And once I asked for help, it's when, I wasn't a high performing human being anymore. And this has got to change. So that was when I decided, this was like 2006 or 2007, when I was like, I'm going to write a book about this one day. And then fast forward, I think it was 2013 or 2014, I was asked to do a talk in DC for the National Eating Disorder Association. So I've been a part of the NEDA, it's called NEDA, National Eating Disorder Association, which is a great resource for those of you who do struggle with an eating disorder out there or have a loved one. But they asked me to come and be on a panel, and so I did. And in the audience, there's about 1,000 people in the audience, and in the audience was a ghostwriter who had written for television, Alan Eisenstock, and he, just heard my story and was like, related to it with some of his own loved ones, and was like, I want to help you write your story. And I was like, what? And I'd been working on a vignette with other colleagues of mine, yet it really wasn't going anywhere, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue on that path. But when he said, let's write it together, your story, it's like, okay, yeah. It's kind of like having a writing coach, like someone who's there with you full time. And he interviewed me. I interviewed him to make sure he wasn't like a creep, which he wasn't, just to make sure. And we went back and forth. He interviewed me for about a year. He got all the documents, transcribed the book. We edited it together. We actually had to pitch a proposal first, got it picked up by a few publishing houses wanted it, but HarperCollins is the one that ended up with it. Harper One, which is an imprint of HarperCollins. And so, yeah, Alan and I wrote the book together, and it was about a year-long journey to include all the editing and whatnot, and then it was launched in 2016. So I met him in 2014, we decided to do it in 2015, and then 2016 it was launched. And it was quite a process. I had no idea what I was doing, first of all, so it was nice to have that coach. It was helping me, it was like a bucket list dream of mine to write a book. And it forced me to develop my own website, which I really don't, I keep up with my Movement RX website, but not my personal anymore. But it forced me to do social media and start to talk more and more openly. And I started to share my story more. And even though I was really scared to, because I was like, am I going to be judged for this? Embarrassed? I really put it out there, and nobody judged me. Sure, I'm sure some. You just look at reviews, but who cares? That's always the case. And people got it, even though they weren't in my same position. I had Navy SEALs tell me they could relate to my addiction in their own way. And I had other people say, thank you for speaking up about it. So it really was empowering me. I realized that vulnerability was powerful. I needed to act, though. I didn't necessarily feel that starting to write the book, but because I took action doing it, even though I was scared, I was like, wow, look at this. And one of the other beauties of it was that I was able to grieve my mom as an adult for the first time. A lot happened when I was writing that book. So my mom passed when I was 10, but I wrote a whole chapter about her. And I needed to write about her. And I hadn't, as a young girl, I know I grieved, but I really, let it out in the book. And then every time I read it, I can't have a dry eye. And also, while I was writing the book, my father, who was 69 at the time, passed away. So he never got to read the book to its entirety. So I dedicated it to him too. But it was, an emotional roller coaster, but a needed one. And wherever the book went, I didn't really care. I just knew that it was good for me. And I did it for me and my own healing. And the blessing is that other people benefited, which is pretty cool.
Very cool. And like you said, a lot of times people don't realize when we talk about courage, or when I talk about courage on my show, or we talk about bravery, that the layers and the levels of what it is. And for you to ask for help was such a courageous act. And then to go through that healing process of writing the book and then reliving that on that, and then taking that out in the world. And even though you were facing those fears at the same time, and doubts and questions and all that human stuff that we go through, you did it. And you also made a point where you talked about how you are a high performing human. And I think a lot of times we think of people being super strong and not being vulnerable are just men. But it ain't just men, it's women too. It's men and women who the courage to be vulnerable is a huge step for both of us to be able to do that when we need to do that. So being strong when you need to be strong, but vulnerable when you need to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that, I think, your book and your message, I think, is so powerful for people to read and understand that, because there's so many layers to that. And I think you offer that in your story.
Yeah, life is, understanding when, being strong, you can be strong and vulnerable, right? You can be courageous and have fear. There's it's not one or the other. Like that, I think that's a very important distinction for people is we live in the and, and but I do
I
know
like that. I like that. We live in the end.
we live in the and
That's
the
very good.
truth is, if you take action in your life, right, the motivation and healing will come. But you can't wait for motivation. Like that's the thing. It was not comfortable writing a book.
I know.
Yeah.
I've written two, and it was painful. I totally agree.
I mean, but it's so once you do it, and there are pieces of it that can flow well and go well, but
Sure.
it's not easy, right?
Mhm.
It's like you're birthing something, and so, but once you do it, that action keeps drives motivation, and you never know who you're going to impact. Right? Every audience is a little bit different. Every reader is different. Probably when you produce film, right? It's like everyone observes. They have their own filter up. So that is really an interesting aspect of putting yourself out there and why people can hold back from doing it because they're fearful of what people think. Well, not everyone's going to like it. That's just the reality. You could put your heart and soul out there, and there are some people that won't like it. But once you accept that, you realize maybe you're going to help some people, probably a lot of people actually. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's the other side. Besides the self benefit, the self healing, especially if you're writing a memoir and you're going into those issues, but you don't know who you're going to touch, and even and you don't know whose life that could be the answer for them to kind of turn it around, whatever dark place they're in or whatever place that they're stuck. That your words and your experience will kind of give them just what they needed, that little extra to take that step, to take that action, to go, I can do this too. I'm able to like heal. I'm able to step forward.
That is also really something that came out of it too, was, and this is what I realized my role is now as a leader is to let people know that they're not alone, and that if they know I am vulnerable and can ask for help, they can too. It almost gives people permission, right? Or other leaders who just aren't putting their health as a priority yet. They're burning out, like things are happening. I'm giving them permission to do something about it through my own story and my own actions. And if I can do that for people, I will every day.
Oh, absolutely. Well, just to kind of move forward, I mean, you come out, you go through the experience, you write the book, you take that brave step, you get out there, you start speaking, you start working with a group dealing with bulimia, and you're starting to make an impact that way. When or how did you get the idea to start Movement RX? Tell us about that. Where did that come from? And then
Yeah.
what is it and what does it do? So let's kind of get into that for a little bit. And
Yeah.
because obviously you were an athlete when you were young, so there's a little bit of a connection there, but tell us about that journey and how that connects.
Well, I'm a doctor of physical therapy by trade, yet I share this that I'm on the other side of medicine, so the proactive side. And very soon after graduating with my doctorate in PT, I started my company. I worked for a sports performance company in San Diego for a little while, but was not my speed one bit. And so I was like, you know what? I am going to start my own business. And there you have it. So Movement RX started, basically, it was an idea that my husband and I had on my honeymoon. Like, just start your own business. So once we got back, I started it. I even had a veteran friend like help me with the website, my first website. And what it started with was me being a PT in different gyms around San Diego, and then in CrossFit gyms. And I was also speaking for CrossFit on their movement and mobility course. So I got an opportunity to be a presenter and teach all over, which was great. So one helped me with my speaking skills, and then I got to run a business, cash pay business in San Diego. However, probably like 3 or 4 years, and right around when I launched my book, I wanted to focus more on the digital side, corporate wellness, and like really work with organizations and change their culture. Yet I was going about it through, I started with the Navy, so corporate Navy, some of the 32nd Street units there. And so we would go in and teach classes. And then I worked with some HR managers at different companies, and they had our program be part of their EAP program. Yet I found that wasn't very sustainable and scalable. And it was hard, right? Like, especially if there's not leadership buy-in, it's hard to make anything happen. And so we were in this stage where, okay, are we going to do the online digital thing or not? And the pandemic hit. So yes, we had to let go of our PT practice. Well, it fizzled out and then it fizzled back in, like it grew post pandemic, but we decided we're not wanting to run a PT clinic anymore. Like we got to change a company culture. Like how are we going to do that? And so I started doing more speaking and more presentations for organizations, and then started doing in-person stuff. And now we basically provide health and well-being consulting to leadership within organizations. So what we do is we help, there's the problems, right, we face, which is burnout, low back issues, musculoskeletal health issues, all kinds of things that can impact the trajectory of a company and its growth. And what we do is we come in and help dial in the health and well-being of the leadership to include managers, right? So because how they show up does impact their people. Oftentimes these health and well-being programs are focused on the employees versus the leadership. And, the leadership, can impact their employees up to 70% their mental health, right? It's just as much as their significant other, actually, because you spend so much time at work. Yet the reality is some of the op tempos of these organizations are so heavy that, they shove away they shove away people type support, like health and well-being initiatives, rest and digest type experiences where like there's retreats or days off, or, experiences that will help their people to focus on performance. And that's unfortunate. So there are organizations, for example, like Starbucks, that have done it well, started doing it well at the beginning, where they focused on people and performance at the same time. And so, while I was kind of digging a big hole here for myself in terms of, here I'm a PT, I'm trying to help company cultures, how am I going to do that? I had to figure it out. And, I worked with all the wrong people, which taught me a lot too, before I worked with all the right people in my company and within organizations, right? And so, but sometimes that's the thing, is knowing who not to work with. What you don't want is just as important as knowing what you do want. It will help you get to what you do want sometimes, especially if you're someone that likes to do a lot of things, right? I was a coach and I was a speaker and I was a PT, but where is my focus? And so post-pandemic, I got very clear on who I'm serving and how. So no longer do we do PT, although one of our PTs can do telehealth if someone needs it, within an organization, right? Organizations hire us to dial in their sleep, their food, their movement, their mindset training, which is mindfulness and meditation, and then there's social support. All of that to say, it creates more human connection. The things that we bring to the table create more human connection with an organization. So we help leaders dial that in for themselves so they can better show up, right? They have a more of a growth mindset if they're doing the things we ask them to do and train them to do, right? They're going to respond versus react to the people. They're going to want to help their people, right? And what can that do is that can help solve the great resignation within an organization, right? That can help bleeds of revenue, like profit loss. That can help a lot of things. That can help interpersonal conflict that's happening within an office space. That can help with stress. Yet the problem is, a lot of leaders, we get kind of pushed into the HR bucket, if you will, but we belong in the leadership training bucket, leadership and development, because it's a part of how you show up as a leader, right? And yes, our health and well-being programs can help most people, but it needs to start with the leadership. And if the leadership is not bought in, right, it won't work within the company. And so that's our focus now.
And let me go. I'm not sure what the connection is. You've obviously done a lot and continue to do a lot, because you have incredible energy, and clearly health and fitness is a big part of it. You also were part of an adapt movement, and I don't know, is that something that continues? But I would love to play a video where you share some of what you were doing with that. Tell us a little bit about it, and then I'll share
Yeah.
the video.
So that's so there's one arm of our business that's leadership and development, right? With the health and well-being space. And then the other arm is the adaptive training. And that's something that Dr. Megan Graff, who's one of our adaptive directors, she takes the lead on, and we have a couple coaches. We actually have a class that we still run in San Diego at CrossFit 1904. So the adaptive training started when I first started my practice, actually. I was working out in different CrossFit gyms, and I was actually volunteer coaching for a hero, like a warrior class. And the warrior class had veterans that were coming in from Balboa Hospital, and they were there and they were being trained, and but not very well, unfortunately. Not in the coaches weren't taking into consideration their major injuries they just experienced. And so I found myself, being an advocate for them, because I'm like, look, I don't think this is the best kind of training for your veterans. I am a big fan of CrossFit. There's different ways you can do it. We don't need to throw hero workouts at them every single time they come train. They just, this individual has chronic migraines. This individual has a TBI, right? This individual has a missing limb. Like, they are just coming off of their injury and learning how to use their body again. They don't need to be thrown under crazy amounts of stimulus yet. So there is a time and place for it. So I found myself really advocating for this adaptive community, and built a new class elsewhere, and started to build different classes around San Diego. So there's more opportunities for these athletes. So an adaptive athlete is someone with an injury where they're not the same as they used to be pre-injury. They have a whole new normal. And so in my PT practice, again, the arm of our business is advocating for adaptive athletes. And that was classes at one point. We did classes for the VA, the Veteran Administration. We did classes for Challenge Athlete Foundation. And then we developed a college level course for different universities around the country that have exercise physiology and kinesiology programs. So as much as I want to be involved in that, I just don't have the bandwidth. So I started it, and then I handed it over to Dr. Megan Graff, who has done an amazing job with it and is growing it. So we get to work with the VA, we get to work with universities across the country, and then still have a class in San Diego. And what it does is it makes sure we help athletes and health providers who are working with these athletes understand what's next for them after rehab. So go ahead and play the video if you want.
All right, I'll do that, and then we'll come back to the rest.
My name is Dr. Theresa Larson, and I am the founder of the ADAPT movement. I'm very excited to present this movement to the world. Why? Because working with the adaptive population saved my life. I've experienced loss. I've experienced trauma in my own life, and I've seen physical and mental trauma before my eyes, both as a Marine Corps officer, family member, as well as a business owner. Life. We all have the ability to adapt, and I'm very excited to share this movement. It's very near and dear to my heart that I want the people across the world to embrace and know. 4% of all injuries out there are from trauma. 96% of all injuries are actually preventable. While you can survive any injury, there is a need to adapt or change and accept finding your new normal.
Everything has become easier for me. Getting in and out of my wheelchair, from the floor or to the bed from my wheelchair, everything has just became such like an easy, smooth process.
Being able to stay physical, keep my body loose, pliable, but also mentally has helped me to get through a lot of my, we'll use the word for now, demons, and push through a lot of those hard times.
Before I was going for the least pain, and all I was doing was setting off something else in a different muscle. So it's a constant, the workout is a constant. The adaptive movement is constantly making you do the right movements of your day-to-day movements.
Adaptive individuals are the most resilient people on the planet. They have accepted and are making the best out of their life right now. They are working to find out how to move and complete tasks versus saying, I can't. We provide expert insights through online training and in-person seminars that coaches and healthcare providers use to better help the permanently injured recover. These insights cover visible and invisible wounds, from spinal cord injuries to traumatic brain injuries to neurological conditions, other neurological conditions, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, those with amputations, salvage limbs, just to name a few.
They help change the meaning of what fitness means to me. We have to just understand what movement and the whys behind each exercise. So when we program for our athletes, we help them understand the whys behind each movement.
We provide research and hope as we interview those who have become permanently injured and are adapting beautifully. We also interview experts in physical medicine, emotional health, strength and conditioning, and other fields from around the globe.
What's so powerful about this is that we're now taking those movements and making them functional movements in the gym, working with these individuals and seeing the obstacles that they've overcome and their resilience. It's really opened my eyes with sheer will and determination. You can find a way to really overcome any obstacle.
We want to see adaptive tribes in every active community in the nation and across the globe. We want your gym full of athletes with adaptive needs, with coaches who are capable and confident in providing them the same fitness experience as they do those without injury.
All
Nice.
right. Let me get.
That's a beautiful video.
It is just, just watching it. I watched it for the first time today, and just, what you created and then passed along, and that continues to serve, it's just something that empowers people who need that empowerment on so many levels. And so it is a powerful video. So thank you for creating all that for people with adaptive needs.
Well, the beauty in that too is with the growing movement, we've found through the coursework and people we've met that, an area we need to be is in the education for coaches and healthcare providers. So those at the college level who want to become healthcare providers or coaches, like understanding how to work with that adaptive community is just a normal part of our population is important versus the specialty course that they maybe get elsewhere. It needs to be part of a curriculum. And so I found, just with my background and my company's background with what we do, well, working with the adaptive athlete is one thing. The people that are going to be helping them in their life, beyond their medical team, their health and well-being team, need to understand this work too. And so where do we find them? We find them in schools. We find them through fitness training certifications, right? NSCA, CrossFit, university level, NASM, ASPSM, American College of Sports Medicine, all those places.
Well, let me ask you, because there's different components, and you're kind of talking about all the components. So obviously there's the fitness and the exercise and the health component and the physical rehab component. But then there's the mental side and the attitude and the mindset and the beliefs, and then the mental health issues that are in the middle of all that as well. So it's like all of that makes up a human. It's not just one piece. And you're kind of involved in all those pieces. So why don't you share a little bit of that perspective and what you teach and what you coach leaders on all those issues?
Yeah. Well, one, physical exercise, as you see with the adaptive community, is helpful for you mentally, extremely helpful. Like I find most of them do it for their mental health. Yes, they want to get stronger, but I'll be one to admit too, I train for my own mental health. Like I know it's good for me and I feel better afterwards. Yes, physically, but also more importantly, mentally. But I found, so when I was dialing in the message for, and the way I help individuals within organizations, I I know the benefits of sleep, and obviously I'm a physical therapist, so I know the benefits of movement and unplanned movement, such as walking all day, moving more during the day versus just exercise. And I also practice mindfulness and meditation in my own life, and that has really helped me overcome and work through trauma and stress. And then I've seen the benefits of social support. So when I was thinking about, okay, when I go into an organization, really help them, I do talks all over the country, but I'm talking like the work, the products and services I provide a company that really help people, right? If you read any of Zig Ziglar's stuff, it's like the products and services is what really helps people. Like, how are you going to, I don't want to just do a one and done training where everyone's super stoked and then they go back to their normal lives and don't know what the hell to do. So how do I really want to help them? Well, yeah, I can go into conflict resolution and conflict management and look at, how the operations of the company go. I have a team to do that. But the other piece is like, well, how are you showing up? You've got a boss who's completely in left field, and then managers who only care about their quota. Like, what's going on here? And then, someone who's in, the corner office who's showing up each day a little late, a little stressed out, but no one's paying attention, right? No one's paying attention. And so how are we showing up? How are the people doing? let's start there. And so when we work with an organization, we always do an assessment. We do a leadership well-being assessment, and it taps into questions around their sleep, their mindset training. Do they train their mind in any way, whether it's breath work or meditation? How often do they move? How many steps do they make a day? How much moderate intensity exercise do they get? Who are they hanging out with outside of work? Is it just their drinking buddies, or is it someone else? Is it other people? And then their food. What kinds of foods are they eating? So we ask all these questions, and then we collect the data and we look at, okay, so people are chronically underslept, aren't moving enough, right? There's no real mindset training. Maybe one guy does breath work and another does meditation, but it's not really a required thing within the company. So then we start to talk, then we go into a workshop, an actual physical workshop with the leadership, talking about these components: food, mindset, movement, all these things that you see on the Lifestyle RX, actually, which is great. You just put up that link, John. So the Lifestyle RX lists the major well-being behaviors that you're going to want to dial in your life. You can click on this link and download it. It's basically something you can put up in your office. I've got, a calendar up behind my computer, and it's got a little checklist. What are the top 3 things you should be doing in those 5 well-being categories? It's a yes or a no, right? If you're not getting 120 minutes of moderate exercise in, then it's a no. If you're getting 119, it's a no, right? It's a yes or a no. And then on the back, there's my favorite self-mobilization. So you got a little QR code, and right, if you got neck issues, shoulder issues, low back issues, right, there's different mobilizations you can do that are fun with a lacrosse ball. I put my 10 favorite mobility drills up there, and I want to actually, whoever's listening, help you right now. It's literally something you can print out, put on your wall, take a screenshot, do a video, make a check mark, at least start dialing in one of those things, maybe each month. That's all it takes, one at a time. But that's the thing, most people have a lot of health and well-being things to dial in. Maybe they have one thing going for them, right? But here's the thing, the reality is a lot of leaders have to decide between health, family, work. So they're going to decide work, family, because it's in front of them. Well, dialing in health and well-being needs to be part of your lifestyle, but it's not going to happen overnight. And so what we do is one at a time, we take on these well-being behaviors one at a time with the leaders, and then have a program attached to it with follow-up and support. And so we do a workshop, we kick it off, you learn to trust me, like me and my team. I actually work with a retired Navy SEAL, so we work together. And then the next quarter we go and do another workshop that kind of progresses the skills that we just taught you in the previous one. And we do that 4 different times, right, with an organization. So over the span of a year, we worked in person 4 different times or more, depending on if it's virtual or in person, but dialing in good health habits and dialing out bad health habits. And it's been amazing. For some companies, revenue growth, retention, happiness, feeling good. I mean, it's been pretty cool to see. And but the thing is, those 5 well-being things that we're speaking about, right? It's the adaptive stuff still comes into it. I mean, there are people with lots of injuries, so we are inclusive to those people, to the people that have disabilities. But at the end of the day, right, we're giving them the gift of human connection.
Mm.
If you're more mindful and you're going to be happier, you're going to be more present. You're not going to be as much of a D-bag, right? You're going to pay attention to what people don't say, right? And it's easier to be calm and solve problems when you're a little more mindful. Breath work, right? Getting more exercise, getting more dopamine, serotonin in your body, getting those endorphins going. You're going to be happier in general with the things you're up against. And you're putting yourself first, which is really powerful. So when that job does end, you actually can enjoy your life versus drop dead after a few years because you're so stressed out, or you've got heart disease or high blood pressure, but you've never done anything about it because you got to work, you got to take care of your family, and you never learned how to dial in your own well-being because you didn't think it mattered until you lost it. And that's the reality.
And it does matter. And how did you find, I don't know, do I call you Dr. T or Theresa or both? Either way.
Call me Theresa.
Theresa, okay. How did you find, that during COVID, I think during the period of COVID, if anything, for some people, or maybe for a lot of people, there was a reversal of that. Because like you're talking about the importance of connection, because connection, people lost connection, that human connection, and some of them stepped back physically, and some of them stepped back into better eating habits. And so there was kind of a retreat as opposed to a broke forward. So now, even more so, I think people need to move forward. And with your program, you're offering them all those elements that they need to move forward with. Anytime in life, they would have needed to do that, but maybe now even more so.
Yeah, people are still struggling, especially the bigger organizations post-pandemic. There's this now hybrid aspect to workers, right? They're at home and or in the office. My best friend just had a baby, right? So she's going to be eventually in the office a little bit and then at home. Some companies are forcing their workers to go back full time. Now people are so used to being at home, but being at home also causes stress because people don't know how to shut off. So the thing that we're seeing is a lot of burnout, which is it's a symptom of the systemic issue underneath, which is the op tempo of your company is too much for the people to handle, right? You're asking, like I was just talking to an organization the other day, they're asking their people to do a lot, but they have a lot less people. People have quit, and they're still at the same op tempo. So they're not, dialing it back for the health of their people. They're keeping it up because, of course, they want money.
Sure.
That's the problem, right? You are in the business of people. If you hire people, you got to take care of your people and help your people. They're not just a product or a number. And so what we're seeing is high levels of burnout because, one, people don't know how to shut off at the end of the day. Now they're emailing at all hours of the day. Right? I've had literally executives emailing me at midnight. When I get up the next morning, I'm like, what? Why is this person emailing me at this time of the hour, time of night? There's scheduling. You can schedule an email. But people don't know how to shut off. And when you don't know how to shut off, that can create, the constant fight or flight that you're in.
Sure.
That is a big one, like not knowing how to shut off. I mean, I just was teaching at a summit with a bunch of veteran ERG leads, which are employee resource group leads. And some of these men and women work 14 to 16 hours a day, Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, and then they have to process it. And imagine sitting Zoom call after Zoom call. I get exhausted sitting for an hour. I mean, I hate sitting, and I'm very against it. Like if you want to book a call with me, I literally have on the title of the call, walking call with Dr. T. Because we are going to be walking when we're talking.
That's great. That is great.
But yeah, we're seeing just the boundaries of work life it seems to be annihilated. And I know people know that their mental and physical health are important, and some companies are paying more for it, but still usually performance supersedes all that. And they kind of throw health and well-being into this EAP bucket. Like, look on our website, we've got an EAP program. that nobody wants to do, right? Because it's boring and it's online. People need human connection. I do have a platform, but again, nobody needs more virtual platforms. I have it as a resource, but I'd rather work with you in person, John, or your company, right? You get to know me, and then they're like, oh, I get to see you online. Cool. Versus not even knowing the people that they're working with online. So we're teaching the boundaries, and mindfulness really does help with creating boundaries. We teach in the mindfulness training we teach you how to monotask or single task. One task at a time. You are front and center for me right now, nothing else. Phone is off. Like, learning how to set the boundaries in your own life is really important in this hybrid environment we're in now, to shut off. Like, even on Sundays, typically, it's because of you, John. I'm only here on this podcast with you today. But
Well, thank you.
it's a completely offline day. But that's the thing. You got to have that boundary. And I think people don't, when they've got their bosses emailing them at all hours, and they've got people underneath them maybe that aren't doing their job or emailing at all hours, that there needs to be communication around creating boundaries too. And the culture, so the leaders have to set the precedent. And you know what? The reality is you're going to be more energetic and happier if you work within a certain parameter of hours. Right? Because then you have a life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's understanding all those pieces, all that balance. And you know, as you say, this time it's kind of changed. So it's getting a little different and more complicated for people. But, you know, leaders need to set those boundaries. Leaders should, not that they do, but they should care for their people, right? They should understand that, you know, the most valuable thing is your team and the people who work with you in your company and in your organization. And, you know, being willing to put their interests first, or at least take care of their interests is crucial to have a great organization. It doesn't always happen. You know that probably better than many. It's, you know, leadership that sometimes that's maybe the last thing on their agenda, or the least thing that they think about, because it's all about, you know, whatever. We need to produce this, we need to produce that, we need to produce a profit, we need to produce this. And then the people are kind of like, oh yeah, the people.
Which is really sad.
It is. It is.
It's really sad, because we're talking humanity here. I mean, that's the thing that blows my mind is, I mean, and I have no problem. I don't care who you are. I mean, in terms of talking about this, because it's like, when's it ever enough? You know, I mean, I know companies need to make money. I mean, our company does, right? But at what cost? And we need to be true to our vision and live our vision and values. That's important to us. But your people are what make your company run. And so
if you treat them right and you take care of them, then you really accomplish more, you produce more, but you have happy people, you have people who are, you know, enjoying and working together to achieve it, and they're not always being stressed out or treated like they're useless, or they're just being used, you know, which then creates a different kind of stress and atmosphere in your company or in life for them, which isn't, you know, that's not the way the best leadership should be. That's not real leadership. I mean, there's plenty of leadership like that, but, you know, you want to emulate the best leadership, not other kinds of leadership. And I think that's what we seem to be promoting.
Oh yeah. Well, and a leadership is not a title, it's an action.
Yes.
So it's, you can, you know, I'll be completely vulnerable here and say, even when I asked for help in the Marine Corps, I considered myself a really good leader for my Marines. But then when I asked for help, I felt like such an idiot. You know, the people around me that I was asking for help with did not make me feel like this was a great decision.
Sure.
And so I questioned my ability as a leader. Over time, I learned, no, that was the best thing I could have done. I was maybe operating at 40 or 50% of my capacity. Could someone have got hurt? Yes. Did someone? No. But I was just hurting myself. But my level of cognitive ability was significantly declined. And so it took me a while to realize some of the decisions you make as a leader aren't popular.
Right.
It was hard for me actually to let go of the adaptive training completely and put it in someone else's hands who could run with it based on bandwidth and time. Like, what matters to me is I don't want to be busy. Like busy, I mean, busy doing important things, yes, but I want to make sure I always have time for my family. Like I'm not compromising that and myself. This is my life. Like I could be gone tomorrow. Can't take your business with you.
That's
Can't
true.
take your things with you. And so
That's
it's like
true.
I can learn that like what really matters. But the point is I know I'm a good leader and not and through my actions. And even though there were some at the time who didn't think that way, because I asked for help and maybe I should have asked for help sooner. Sure, of course I could have. But I was also trained a certain when I was 22 years old or 24 years old, right? Didn't want to let anyone down. Had to be
Of
perfect.
course,
And so I can forgive myself for that. That's
as you
also
should.
part about being a leader is forgiving yourself and forgiving others and moving the heck on and continuing to grow. And but yeah, it's not a title, it's an action.
And like you said, and being able to forgive yourself and recognize that you're human and you have strengths and weaknesses. And you're not just all strengths, you're also your weaknesses as well. And that's part of what makes you who you are, your humanity. And acknowledging that and being willing to not come down on yourself for the fact that you have weaknesses. I mean, we all do. We're all unique individuals, we're better at this, worse at that. And, it's recognizing that. And that's how we can get help from other people because we realize, yeah, this person's so much better at this than I am. That's not my strength. It's my, I'd love to have it as a strength, but it's not. So I rely on them to have that strength for me because I don't have that strength.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability and that acknowledgement. I mean, that's a great lesson that you went through at such a young age. It takes some people a lot longer, a lot older in life to learn it. It doesn't matter when you learn it, as long as you learn it and you start to apply it in your life, it's going to be a good thing for you.
Yes, there's no better time than right now.
That's right.
I work, working with all these leaders. I mean, you guarantee a lot of them have put their family on the back burner. Work first, then family, then health.
Right.
Their health has declined. Their relationship with their kids is not so great as they want it to be. But well, that is sad, right? There's a grieving that has to happen.
Right.
It's still okay. Well, I know this, and I want to change. I want to grow. So there's no better time than now to forgive, make amends, and build the relationships you need to in the time that you have. You're never too old. And I think that's really important. And that's part of the permission I give people is like, look, there's no better time than now to take action in your health. Yes, you've got all kinds of issues going on, but let's start working on them little by little versus just waiting until you're retired or a better time, because there is no really better time. It's right now. If you got to make amends with a sibling, do it.
Do it. I mean, that's the thing. Just take a step forward. It isn't the final step. You're not going to get the end result, but each step forward is a step in the right direction. And if it's a baby step, then it's a baby step. It doesn't matter, but it's a step, right? You're going, I need to get this together. I acknowledge it. I haven't paid attention to it. So let me take a baby step and then I'll take another step. And each time you'll get stronger because you took another step, And so, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's what's great. I'm gonna put up your thing once again, just for people who want to contact with it. Here, let me get it up here. And that's where they can reach out to get this. So tell them about this.
Well, I was going to say, one of the questions I always get is like, okay, well, I run a business or I'm a leader in my own, my own life. But it's hard to make time for family, work, and my health. Like that is one of the questions I get. So how do I do it? And so I just want you to know that, well, this isn't the be all end all. I just put together what I felt was 3 top things that you should be doing in those 5 key well-being categories. So it's kind of like a roadmap, if you will, of what kind of things you can do to help your sleep. The top 3 things, the top 3 things that you can think about with food, the top 3 things you can think about with movement, the top 3 things with mindset, and then social support. So it's a little checklist, but then also 10 of my favorite mobilizations that, again, right, if you're someone who has pain in your neck or shoulder or needs to learn how to self-massage, right, do self mobility, then check this out. Go ahead and download it. You know, it's free. It's called the Lifestyle RX, and it has my information on there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But I think it's a great free resource that you can put up on your wall and remind you each day of, you know, dial in one of those behaviors a week, a month, and then dial in another one a little at a time. And over a year, you could have dialed in all 5 of those behaviors, and you will be a different person, meaning you will have grown, or you could stay the same. It's your choice.
I like the way you just finished that. And that's the thing. It's your choice. It really is everybody's choice. And you know, you're giving them a great tool and great tools that they download it to use. And all they have to do is make a choice. And you know, if you want to, you know, make a difference in your life or make a change, make a choice. And if you don't want to, then you make the different choice, and things will stay the same for as the way, and you'll keep going down that same path. But you have an ability to change. You just got to make a different choice. And it's not that extreme a choice. It's a small choice, but you have to make that choice.
Well, for those, you know, number thinkers out there who love numbers, just think about it like this, like getting 1% better a day. That's what this will help you do. 1% better. So over the course of the year, you could be 37 times better. So there's an exponential increase, right, that you have from getting 1% better a day. Or, right, you could do nothing and be exactly where you are.
Or you go in the other direction.
Yeah, you could go worse. So it's really your choice. I mean, on any given day, right, it's up to you. And that's where we come back to the living courageously. Living courageously isn't like going out and fighting bears. It's literally being able to dial in this stuff and making yourself important. You matter enough to work on you.
100%. As we wrap up the show, anything else? I know you have other things. You've sent me stuff. You have ideas for the future. You may want to do a documentary series. You have all kinds of other projects you want to do, taking all the knowledge of your life that, you know, in your young years that you've accumulated. But you want to share some of that as we finish up the show.
Well, John, I've spoke to you about this. I've been working on this documentary over the past year. Learn what a treatment was. You know, have had a couple of producer friends kind of mentor me, and it's so how I help organizations. This series is around how to help the family unit. Right, I'm a big safety advocate in schools. I'm part of the district accountability committee. I'm in our superintendent's ear, our principal's ear all the time. I'm kind of like the squeaky wheel, probably that's pretty annoying. I don't care because I care about safety. And I do believe the health of our country revolves around the family. Like we need to help our families connect.
Amen.
And so that's why I wrote this documentary series that I don't know what it's going to turn into. What I need is to find a partner who's like, yes, let's do this, who actually is in the production world, John. And
well, we will talk about it, me and you, but
make it come alive.
So interested in reaching out and learning more about it. Obviously, you can reach out to Dr. Theresa and let her share that with you. If anybody wants to partner with us or her or whatever, absolutely. But keep going, keep finishing.
Yeah. It's going to be out there. I mean, the idea came up when my book was published, and then a friend of mine who was an actress and became a producer was like, I want to make this into a movie. And I was like, okay, well, sure. I'm not so tied to my story, but what about warrior stories? Yes. And now I'm like, well, if we're going to really save the world, our country, where do we start? The family. So that's where the kind of the pivot happened of let's do this with the family.
Well, I agree with that so much. And I think the importance of the family is so vital going forward. So you have a great concept, you have a great idea, and you have a great mission and purpose with it. So, you know, I definitely think it's a great thing. And we'll talk more further, of course, offline.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts as we wrap up and just, finish the show? And thank you so much for being part of it. And thank you for giving me your Sunday hour. So I appreciate that.
Oh, yes. Well, I guess the thing I would like to leave you with is for those of you out there who need help, right? It takes the courage and strength of a warrior to ask for help. So do it, and you'll see your life. You'll see your life grow and blossom. That's the hardest thing, is to first ask for help, and over time it'll become easier. But take that first step if you're listening. That is living courageously. And for some of you, it's just going to be making sure you get your sleep each day, or saying no more. Right? What does living courageously look like for you? For a lot of you, it's probably going to mean asking for help.
Well, you can reach out and ask for help. And I think the show's been very inspiring. I hope everybody's enjoyed it and were inspired by Dr. T's story and her powerful commitment to fitness and health and the family and making a difference in people's lives. So thank you once again. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing all this stuff. And I hope people reach out, businesses and individuals reach out, download what they can from you, take that action, make that choice, and we'll talk further in the future about what you're trying to do. Once again, Theresa, thank you very much for joining.
Drink water, everyone. Drink water. Thank you.
Good. Have a great Sunday. Bye. And once again, I hope everyone enjoyed the show. And if you haven't seen my previous 48 podcasts with some of my amazing, courageous friends sharing their powerful stories, you can check them out on YouTube, my Live Courageously YouTube channel. And I have another 75 more shows coming up in the future. So join me every Sunday at 2 p.m. and keep coming back. And may you make your life a masterpiece, and God bless.